So, hi everyone, thanks for joining us. We want to talk about redirects today. And while it might not be the flashiest of topics, we think it's still a very important one because across many projects we've been working on, we have seen redirects not really getting the attention they deserve and causing a lot of operational pain as a result. So we decided to look at the current state of affairs with the tooling that is available to us in AEM and share some practical recommendations to hopefully make redirects boring again in the best possible way. I'm Martin Wehner. I'm a solution architect at diva-e, building large websites on AEM for more than 20 years, and with me is Masoud.
Hi, I'm Masoud. Also, I'm a solution architect at diva-e. I've been working the last 2 decades with building AEM solutions.
Yeah, let's start with a quick pulse check. Who has less than 1,000 redirects in their project? Who has 1,000 to 5,000? 5,000 to 10,000? More than 10,000? More than 50,000? Okay, yeah. I guess, yeah. No judgment. Many of us inherited the CSV of doom. Nice transition. So what are the challenges we have with redirects? We have sheer volume and churn. Redirects tend to pile up indefinitely from rebrands, migrations. You start with a few and then you end up with thousands, 10,000s, up to 1 million. One-off rules get mixed with wildcards, collisions creep in, you have duplicates. Then the list starts to go stale and brittle, and no one remembers why these rules are actually there and whether it's still needed. Then we have the fragmentation across layers. We have redirects spread all over the different places, CDN rules, web server, dispatcher rewrites, the CMS itself. Each layer has its own different syntax, different tooling. Some are configured via UI, some are configured via config files or APIs. Precedence isn't obvious, caching is different on each layer. One change in one layer can shadow another one, and debugging all of this is a pain. Lack of governance, no standard workflow to add, remove, retire redirects. They rarely have an expiry, linger forever. And then we have the SEO and performance implications where, you waste scroll budget with multiple hops and have broken redirect targets. And performance-wise, you must take extra care that stuff is still fast and you want to minimize origin load. Let's look at some of the basics. What type of redirects do we have? We have, broadly, they can be categorized in two classes, the system-driven ones, the canonicalization redirects, protocol, host, port, path, extensions, and so on. We have access availability, putting up maintenance windows, login flows, SSO handoffs, and then the routing and localization redirects where you want to send users to the right region, language, or the proper device experience. And then we have the business-driven redirects where the problems start to creep in because these change often, non-engineers get into the picture. we have the redirects resulting from migrations, huge maps. We have the ones from the content lifecycle when pages are moved and renamed. And finally, the marketing stuff, short URLs, campaigns, and from seasonal promotions. Then let's have a look at the redirect codes we have at our disposal to actually do these. We have the permanent redirects, the trusty 0301. This is your workhorse. Probably 90% of those of your redirects will be those. You use it if something has permanently moved. Super important from an SEO perspective because the link equity will be passed on to the target URL. Two words of warning, the semantics are that it is permanent, so clients and intermediaries might cache that quite aggressively. And then also the user agent might change the method actually, might change a post to a get due to ambiguities in the original specification. So the 308 was invented, which is like the 301, but has a guarantee to preserve that method and protocol. And it is widely supported now. Only old IEs don't support it, so it should really be the default by now. Then we have the temporary redirect for only temporary moves, for putting up maintenance windows. These are typically not cached by browsers until you send explicit cache control headers, which tells the browser otherwise. Again, it is not guaranteed that the method will be preserved, so there's also a 307, the temporary redirect, which will give you that guarantee. And then we have the 303, which is a bit of a special case. This you use after a form submission, where you want to redirect the client with a get to a confirmation page and don't want the original action repeated. Okay, and with that, I hand over to Masoud for giving us an overview over the tooling.
Yeah, thank you. So we will have a look at the server-side solutions possible with the AEM. We will look at the different layers of redirect solutions with more focus on a couple of things which is required in your large-scale projects. First of all, is it author-friendly UI? It means, is it something that you can give to your business people or content team to work with? Is it multi-tenant ready? Which means you do have different configuration files for your different tenants and content paths. How flexible and how feature-rich is it? Means, can you handle like regex, wildcard, define how this HTTP status will be? And last but not least, how complex it gets and how it performs at scale. So let's jump in with the, starting with the AEM solutions. Most of you maybe are familiar with the vanity URLs. This was one of the earlier concepts in AEM. So it's based on generating string mappings for each vanity URL. It's fairly easy to use because in the page properties integrated, but it comes with some costs. It's concepted actually for using as like few entry points, but not massively used for your redirects. The big disadvantage is there is no out-of-the-box overview tool. Of course, there's a couple of tools, external tools. We had also some talks at adaptTo early years, a few years ago, about the having overview on the vanity URLs, but it's somehow limited. And yeah, it's of course not multi-tenant, so it's no guarantee that if your tenant A defines some short URL, the other tenant didn't use this. So there's a high potential of conflicts. Another option is using redirect pages. Of course, you can use the core components page or WCMIO redirect template. It's also an easy one because you have, again, integrated in your author environment. But again, this is also for some structural redirects like your navigation. It should not be used for heavily redirecting. The tool I personally like much is the ACS Commons Redirect Manager. So this was introduced in early 2021. To be honest, at that time it had some issues, but during the course of the years it is constantly improved, and I really like to use it. So it gives you a fairly intuitive UI. You can use it with your content team or your power users. You can generate your redirects from simple redirects to mid-complex redirects. It supports wildcards. You can set the HTTP status. You can have on-time and off-time, which is very good if you have like campaigns. Christmas campaign should be only available in a specific period of time. You can add CQ tags. You can add notes, which is very good to have an overview of which redirect is generated where. And you can also export the whole redirect in an Excel sheet, give it to your business people, and then import it. So offline processing is also available. But of course, the redirects are processed at the AEM level, which is like not any other AEM solution. It's not the most efficient one. Another option is a bit older tool of ACS Commons. It's called Redirect Map Manager. It is actually a tool to generate rewrite map files, which is now interesting in combination with the pipeline-free redirects, which I come to in a minute. And of course, you can build your own solution. This is sometimes required if you want to have like personalized redirects. If you want to have redirect from /profile/me to profile username and then something else, you have to have your own solution. But usually you should avoid this if you can leverage other solutions because it comes always with cost and is very complex. And one last thing, whatever solution you use, processing redirects in AEM is fairly expensive and slow. At dispatcher level, we have this mighty mode rewrite. We developers love it. It's very fast. It's very feature-rich. It's well documented, so you can do everything with it. You have access to plenty of the additional information like headers, CDN headers, and so on. But it gets complex. It is nothing that you give to your business people or your content team. And you have always a dev effort plus a deployment required. So it's somehow costly. Yeah, but what if you could configure or combine the best of these two worlds? That means configure our redirects in AEM, but process them at dispatcher. And this is where the pipeline free come to play. So this was introduced almost 1 year ago, but I think it's still not widely used among the projects. It's fully integrated in Cloud Manager. It doesn't need any deployments. So your content team really generate TXT rewrite maps on your AEM. You can have a UI if you want to. You can use, for example, the redirect manager or map manager, but you don't have to. You can also upload your file, TXT file into there. And yeah, that's it. So you have one initial setup by your dev team, and everything else happens without interference of your dev team. Let's have a look at it, how it works. So at author, you will create, the pointer doesn't work, yeah. You will create a key value map txt file. This can be, as I said, as easy as a DAM file. Let's say it's in content DAM SEO redirect txt and publish it. In dispatcher, you will declare this file or all of your rewrite maps in a file called manage rewrite map YAML, which would be in the opt-in directory. The dispatcher has a polling process based on the TTL you define and polls these rewrite maps constantly. If there's something changed, it converts it into a binary key value map in a DBM file and put it in a TMP rewrite folder. So it's quite fast. After that, it's a simple rewrite map directive in your dispatcher, and you can, of course, use it. These two things, this YAML file and also the rewrite map, these are the initial setups that your dev team have to do, and everything else happens automatically without interference with your dev team. You can also play with it around a bit with it, and like have key value maps with what's it called? AEM client country, so the geolocation header of your CDN plus URL. This could be also a key of your URL. So you can also, even your content team can configure geolocation-based redirects in AEM, which is very fine. If you use AEM Edge Delivery Services, you have only this redirects sheet, which is fine. You can have wildcard rewrites. It has a limitation of 100 kilobyte, which is roughly 1,000 redirects, which is okay for smaller EDS websites. There is no multi-tenancy, so if you have multiple tenants, multiple clients, and on the Edge Delivery Services, you have only one redirect sheet. And the HTTP status is always 301. If you want more complex redirects, you have to use your CDN. Speaking of CDN, if you are using AEM as a cloud service, you always have this Adobe managed CDN, but you can also have you bring your own CDN on top of it. So CDNs are built to be fast, to feature rich, so you can have redirects in it. It's the best tool is on the edge. But the CDN, the first purpose of the CDN is caching. And especially in the case of Adobe Managed CDN, you have just one YAML file where you have your traffic rules, you have request and response processing, and you have your redirects. So and this is also limited to 200 kilobytes. So this is nothing good to put a lot of redirects in it. Plus, there's no UI, so your content team cannot do it. And it also requires a deployment. If you have your own CDN, it's probably more flexible. You have your UI, but still, there's nothing you want your business people to mess around in your CDN configurations. So to sum it up, in terms of author friendability, if you are working in AEM itself or in ADS sheet, it's very author-friendly. Dispatcher Pipeline Free is also author-friendly because it uses AEM layer. The multi-tenancy is actually given in Dispatcher Pipeline Free and in a redirect manager. Of course, if you use model rewrite, you can have also different vhost files. In terms of flexibility, it's very high in CDN, of course, and also in the dispatcher mod rewrite. But you have also quite good features in ACS Commons redirect manager. The lowest is the vanity URL. Dispatcher configuration can get complex as well as the CDN. The lowest complexity is if you use like a sheet for your redirects, or if you use a redirect manager, but redirect manager can get also complex if you have like thousands of redirects plus wildcards. There is no integrated validation, so you cannot detect any redirect loops and so on. Yeah, and regarding performance, actually the performance is always good. In CDN is excellent, but the lowest performance you have if you process things on AEM layer. With that,
yeah, let's come to the part where we try to put the pieces together. So let's start with governance. Start by defining some kind of ownership. Who is allowed to create, update, and retire redirects? Who has to approve what? Then secondly, decide on where each type of redirect lives. Generally speaking, technical redirects you want close to the developers, you want it in your code, you want it deployed with the application. They should be version controlled, code reviewed, and protected from accidental changes by editors. They are what make your application work after all, so there need to be strong guardrails. The editorial redirects, on the other hand, you want close to the authors in AEM, and you want to establish a simple self-serve workflow for that, because you want to avoid ending up having to maintain thousands of lines in an Apache file for yourself. Then a clear change process. It doesn't need to be something fancy, but everything really beats being the guy who gets access by mail. So then test in staging, have a rollback plan, and that involves also testing that purging the caches, the involved caches with your redirects as intended. And then, probably most importantly, schedule regular audits. Because, yeah, you have to treat redirects really as a living system they are, and use that opportunity to fix broken targets, crawl for chains and loops, collapse chains into a single hop, and above all, remove stale and expired entries. If you're not sure whether they are still used, you can, for example, use the Google Search Console to see whether they are still indexed. About where to put the redirects. CDN, you really only want global, low-level, or really performance-critical things in there. But in general, you want to keep the rule set minimal and instead rely on caching, because this is kind of contrary to the conventional wisdom of putting everything in the edge, which you will encounter often in this discussion, because you will reap all of the performance benefits, or most of them, just by having proper caching. This is what CDNs are for. And if you have high traffic redirects that are hit often, they will come from the cache anyway. Also, CDNs are inherently developer unfriendly, since their configuration is often gated and unfamiliar. Developers won't touch them because of the high blast radius of any changes they do. And the more changes, the more routes you have in your CDN, the harder it will be to migrate. And this happens more often than one would think. In the dispatcher, well, you have the generic normalization rewrites there, other technical redirects you want in your code. Maps, you should avoid, or at least for editorial redirects, they might be a good fit if you have these huge legacy migration maps, and which you don't want to clutter your redirects that are maintained, for example, in the redirect manager, and are related to the current site structure. And finally, in AEM, this should be really the primary authoring layer for editorial redirects, with the tools you have available, which Masoud just showed you, the redirect manager, vanity URLs, and all the pipeline free maps. You can mix and match those as you see fit in your project. Just be aware of the limitation of each tool, and but yeah. Make sure you use proper headers to that the redirects are actually cached. And while you're at it, you can also have a look at the redirects you're actually issuing from your application code and see whether there's an opportunity to use 303, 307, 308 status code instead of the older ones. Some more best practices we would recommend. Treat redirects as data and store metadata along each entry. You want at least a named owner and an implementation date and some kind of purpose, be it a ticket or some other node. You want later on someone you can go to and ask, hey, is this still needed? Or can we remove that now when it's time to do an audit? Then have a default expiry for business redirects. For example, 12 to 18 months, where a redirect is removed if no one, if it's not a problem. To store this metadata, you should use a simple format that round trips well, that survives import-export in the tools you're using, so that people can actually collaborate without losing these fields. Be careful with patterns. While often you need regex and back references, I would recommend stick to explicit mappings when possible, because they're easier to review, test, grab for, and take less performance to evaluate. If you do patterns, anchor them, limit your wildcards, and include test cases. Just last week, we spent hours chasing down a redirect. Nobody knew where it's issued from, because everyone, which was hiding in a regular expression in the end. Use version control wherever you can. Keep your redirects in a repository. Require PR reviews. And if you have the resources, run automated tests where you can check for potential problems in your CI. Duplicates, chains, target health, and so on. Avoid duplicate rules across layers. Each redirect should live in exactly one place and have one owner. Try to eliminate overlaps you have and shadowed rules to avoid surprises later on. And again, make redirects cacheable at the edge. Let the CDN do the heavy lifting. Make yourself familiar, though, with the CDN configuration with the behavior of your CDN, because they differ quite a bit in that regard, and set explicit cache control headers to not rely on some default that might change at any time. And finally, a quick word about caching headers. These are some sensible defaults we propose. With permanent redirects, you want them to cache like any other content object, really. Give a short TTL to browsers, about an hour, about a day for the CDN. Temporary, you don't want to cache at all in the browser, but a bit, like 10 minutes, in the CDN, so that you protect your origin. But important to note is you should use CDN-specific headers if at all possible, because those shared cache headers as max age, these might apply to other intermediary caches on the way as well, and those you won't be able to purge. So use these CDN-specific headers. Unfortunately, there is no standard yet. We have CDN cache control, for example, which is used by Cloudflare. We have surrogate control from Akamai. By Fastly, and edge control by Akamai, if I remember correctly. And these are then stripped and target only specifically your CDN. Okay, and I think, conscious of time, this is a wrap. We have the references here, which are too small to read for you anyway, but they will be shared along with the presentation. And now we are happy to take questions.
I brought a bunch of questions with me. So like the first all the solutions you presented, when we talk about the input, are they domain aware? Because not always you have like the same redirect supposed to be on every domain or host.
Well, if you use the dispatcher vhost and your context path is mapped to different domains, they are context aware and they are domain aware.
Okay. Next one is a long one, so I have to read. All right. Under which circumstances would you recommend ACS AEM Commons Redirect Map Manager over ACS AEM Commons Redirect Manager for author redirects, authorable redirects?
Yeah. So there are tools for two different things, but both can generate rewrite maps. If you want to just redirect, have your rewrite maps, my personal recommendation is just use the TXT file and upload it into the DAM. It's probably the easiest one without having the tools. The rewrite map manager has a cool feature that it can also gather your vanity URLs among your pages and put it into the map. If it is the case for you, go for it. But if you want just to use not only the map, pipeline free, but also some redirects, the redirect manager is the more powerful tool.
Can you use regex in the dispatcher pipeline free method?
No, because it is rewrite maps, and the rewrite maps are just the exact string match lookup.
Okay. When do you consider performance relevant, given that CDN always caches redirects when they have a proper TTL?
Sorry, again.
It's about the considering performance relevant, given that CDN always caches redirects when they have a proper TTL.
Sorry, I think the CDN caches so if you have the proper caching headers and the TTL, the CDN caches this. But this is not always by default. So and it's difficult. Is different from CDN to CDN if they are cached by default.
Yeah, exactly. Akamai, for example, caches permanent redirects by default for an hour, I think, or something. No, like any other content objects, and temporary ones for 20 minutes. But still, you should do it explicitly so that you know what happens and that it fits your requirements.
Okay, last and final questions for you. Is the pipeline free available also for on-prem?
Okay, this is a question maybe for Adobe people. So from the technology stack, yes, because it doesn't need the CDN, right? And then you have also dispatcher in your on-prem instances. But I guess yes. This should work. I expect it, but I'm not quite sure. I didn't test it.
Thank you, Martin and Masoud. It was great to have you on stage.
Thank you.